So if you're an intermediate or advanced home bartender like myself, and you're wondering how you can stay passionate and enthusiastic about the hobby of home bartending, then this is the correct video for you. My name is Ron Vierpin. I'm a full-time medical doctor, and I've been a home bartender for over 5 years now. During that time, I've learned how to make over 100 different cocktails, and I've thrown over 50 cocktail parties. And I teach other busy professionals how to make cocktails at home. And in this video, I'm going to be addressing that very important question. How do you stay passionate and enthusiastic about home bartending when you're multiple years into this journey? So essentially, there's three main classes of home bartenders. I define them as beginner, intermediate, and advanced. So generally, beginners are people that are in their first year of home bartending. Intermediate is somewhere in that middle, 1 to 3 years, 1 to 4 years, somewhere like that. Maybe even 1 to 5 years. And then somebody like myself, who's more than 5 years into this journey, I would consider advanced, especially if you've been making as many cocktails and are learning new recipes and always trying to learn new things in this hobby, then I would define that person like myself as more advanced. And when you're going along this journey, it's easy, as it is with most other hobbies, to sort of get sidetracked, maybe lose some passion or some enthusiasm for the hobby, maybe have periods of your life where you're not making as many cocktails, or you're not learning as many new recipes, or you're not reading as many books on the topic. And I speak from my experience because I've been like that myself too. There were times definitely along this 5-year journey where I've sort of dipped in that enthusiasm. I wasn't hosting as many parties. I wasn't learning as many new cocktails. I wasn't making as many drinks, things like that. So this video is really to address that and to find ways to, where I could show you guys ways at least, so you can stay as passionate and enthusiastic about this hobby as the day you first started, if not even more, because now you know even more, and then that passion sort of builds on itself. So like I said, this is the same thing that happens with any other skill, any other hobby, anything else that you're going to be learning. It's not really like, a straight line like this or an exponential line like this where you're always going up. It's going to be times where you go up, maybe you go up really fast when you're a beginner, then you sort of like drop off a bit, then you go up, then maybe it's a slower curve up, then you drop a little. So it's always like, it's not exactly linear. That's what I'm trying to say. You're going to have ups and downs. You're going to have periods where you grow really fast. You're going to have periods where you grow slowly. You're going to have periods where you grow at a consistent rate. You're going to have periods where you go back down in terms of your knowledge. Maybe you forget some recipes, maybe you forget some techniques and tricks and things like that. So like I said, it's not going to be linear, but what are things that you can do to make sure that overall you're always going up? And even when you're very late into this journey, you're 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, maybe you're even more advanced than me. Maybe you're 10 years into this journey. Maybe you're 15 years into bartending, and you want to learn new ways to stay enthusiastic. You want to stay passionate about this hobby. Well, that's what I'm going to be talking about in this video. So one thing that you can do, one thing that I find very helpful, is that you should always be trying to learn new recipes. So, like I mentioned in the intro to this video, I've learned over 100 different recipes over the past 5 years, and I'm always still learning new recipes. That's demonstrated by some of the videos that I've done on this channel already. I've done a video on the gin gimlet, and I also recently did a video on the Rob Roy. Both of those cocktails, the first time I actually made those cocktails was when I was doing the video. So you're watching essentially like real time me making a gin gimlet and a Rob Roy for the first time when you watch those videos. And that's part of the reason I started this YouTube channel as well. It's not just, obviously the main focus is on teaching you guys, but for me it's also about staying passionate and enthusiastic about this and trying to learn new things as well so that I can share them with you guys. So that was me. That was just an example of me learning 2 new recipes. So you always have to find new ways to keep learning. One of the most important, that's the reason, one of the reasons for this YouTube channel is trying to teach other people. So whether you're on social media like myself, trying to teach cocktails and stuff and bartending to other people, that's one way to learn. Teaching is probably the best way to learn. But even if you're not on social media, even if you just want to show your friends how to make cocktails, because that's what I was doing before. I only started this channel 6-7 months ago. Before that, I was teaching my friends how to do home bartending at all of my parties. Somebody would ask oh, can I shake the drink? What's in the drink? What's the recipe? Where did the recipe come from? What's the history of this cocktail? So at all of my parties and all of my gatherings where people were over, I was always teaching them things about the drink. I was teaching them the recipe, the history of the drink, how to make the drink, the technique. Pretty much every one of my parties, I've taught at least one person how to make a drink. So teaching others, whether that's, on social media like myself, whether that's, you're at a party or you're at a gathering and somebody asks you how to do it, whether you're just having a conversation, you're just hanging out with your friends, talking about other stuff, and they ask you about your hobbies, and they're saying, oh, home bartending, that's so cool. Can you teach me how to make a drink? Can you do something like that? So whatever way you find, try to teach other people, because teaching other people is how you learn also. Because when you're trying to teach, you're trying to become the best version of yourself. So you're always trying to learn new things. So going back to the original point, you always have to find ways to learn new recipes. So one of the most important is trying to teach other people, because you're going to want to learn new recipes to teach those people. Another important thing is to always try to be hosting parties. I did a recent video on this as well, where I said hosting as many parties as you comfortably can is one of the best ways to really level up as a home bartender. And if you're having those periods where you're dipping in how much you care about this hobby or how much you're learning it in this hobby, one of the best things you could do is to just throw a party, because for that party, you're going to have to learn recipes for that party. You're going to have to go back into the habit of hospitality and hosting a party and things like that. So that's really going to jumpstart you, because I have a party upcoming. I haven't done one in a couple months. My friend's hosting the party and I'm making drinks for the party. So I'm actually going to be trying out probably one or maybe even two different recipes that are cocktails that I've never made before. And not only that, they're actually cocktails that I'm coming up with. They're riffs on classic and modern classic cocktails. So they're not completely unique, but they're original cocktails essentially, because they're cocktails that other people, they're not officially recipes or officially listed cocktails. So I'm still coming up with new recipes. So I would say when you're beyond the beginner stage, you're more than a year or a couple of years into this journey, one of the best things that you can do to keep staying passionate and enthusiastic about this is to try to learn or try to come up with your own recipes, and you make your own recipes for cocktails. So take modern classic and classic cocktails and just try to change one ingredient or do a variation. Maybe you swap a couple of ingredients. So most cocktails are riffs on either modern classics, or even more so, they're going to be riffs or variations on classic cocktails. So take those cocktails, swap out one or two ingredients, and then try to come up with a new recipe and see how well that works. And then host a party and then try to see if other people like that cocktail as well, because that'll give you the feedback. Maybe they said it was too sour, too sweet, whatever the case may be, too strong, and then you got to temper or you got to adjust the ratios, you got to adjust the ingredients, and then you make it again, and then see if people like that version better. So coming up with new recipes is another way to really stay passionate and enthusiastic about this hobby years into this journey. So we've covered a couple different topics already in this video. Let's just summarize them before we move on. So how do you stay passionate and enthusiastic about home bartending when you're multiple years into this journey and you're starting to feel those periods where your enthusiasm and your knowledge and your skills about the hobby start to wane a little bit, they start to come down? How do you bring them back up? How do you come back to really caring about this hobby and wanting to get better? One important way is to teach. So you can either teach on social media like myself on YouTube, or maybe you do it on Instagram or TikTok. You share your recipes, you share your knowledge about the hobby. Or the other way is to, what I did before I had YouTube. I only started this earlier this year in 2025. Before I was doing that, I was hosting all these parties, and there would always be people coming at my party. Every single party that I hosted, I've taught somebody something about cocktails, history of the cocktail. What are the ingredients in that cocktail? What's the flavor profile of that cocktail? How do you make the cocktail? How do you shake? How do you stir? How do you make your ice? Whatever the case may be, whatever these different aspects of making a drink, I would share those and teach those to other people at my parties. And now I do the same thing at my parties still, but I also do it on YouTube as well. So teach is one of the best ways to learn and get better at any skill, not just home bartending, but whatever your hobby may be. So teaching that will help you get better. The other important thing for home bartending to really keep that passion and enthusiasm is to learn new recipes, and to really go one step above and beyond is to make your own recipes. So you should always be trying to learn new recipes, new classic cocktails, new modern classic cocktails. And you should also be trying to see if you can make your own versions, or your own riffs and spin-offs and variations on those classics and modern classics. And really the final way that I'm going to be talking about in this video, the final way that you can really stay passionate and enthusiastic about home bartending, is to just focus on try to learn a new category of cocktails or a new concept or something new in the whole field of home bartending. It's a very broad field. And like I said, when you're first starting off, I think I've said this on multiple previous videos, I think you should always start with classic cocktails. But then once you get intermediate and advanced or very advanced like myself, and you want to start branching out, then that's when you should start looking at tiki. That's when you should start looking at modern classics. That's when you should even try to make your own recipes that I've already mentioned earlier in this video. So those different areas of cocktails, those different cocktail families, maybe you've never made a drink with egg white before. Maybe you've never made a drink with dairy before. Maybe you've never bought a bottle of cognac or, bourbon or whatever thing it is. If you only spent this early part of your home bartending journey learning a certain type of cocktail, then branch out, learn a different thing, learn a different type of cocktail, learn a different family of cocktails, learn different recipes. When I was a year into my journey, I started to feel that dip when I was starting to go from beginner to intermediate, and that's when I started learning tiki. And that really opened up a whole new world of cocktails, and that's when I started to really get that enthusiasm and that passion back, because I was learning something that was completely different. The whole first year of cocktail making, of home bartending, I'd never learned any cocktail recipes for tiki cocktails, and then I was starting to learn tiki, which is definitely an intermediate to advanced topic. So that's something that really jump-started that in terms of getting me going back up on that exponential or even linear growth curve, as opposed to me kind of falling off. So whenever you're starting to feel that dip or you're starting to wane, try to bring it back up by, you've already maybe you've already reached this level where you're this good already at making gin and vodka and tequila cocktails, but you haven't experimented at all. You never learned any cognac cocktails. So start learning cognac cocktails, because for cognac you're still all the way down here. Then you can level that up. So try to just find a new area of home bartending. This, like I said, this is a very broad and wide topic. There's always going to be new areas to really find mastery in. If you already mastered stirred cocktails, but you haven't done shaken cocktails, or there's so many different examples where you may have achieved a level where you're intermediate or advanced in a certain family of cocktails, but you're still beginner in something else. Then bring that up to intermediate, bring that up to advanced, and that's how. Even when you're so many years in this journey, there's still so many things you can learn. Still tons of new things that you can learn. I've done this for over 5 years, and I've had times where I'm more consistent, times when I'm less consistent. But, I still have learned quite a bit in this year, in these 5 years plus, and there's still so much more to learn. There's still so many new recipes to learn. There's still so many new techniques to learn. There's still so many new videos to watch. There's still so many books to read. There's still so much out there. So when you find that you've achieved mastery, or even you've gotten to a good place in one area, find another area where you're already a 7 out of 10 in this area, but over here you're a 2 out of 10, you're a 3 out of 10. Bring that up to a 7. Then find another area where you're a 5 out of 10. Bring that up to a 7. So bring everything up slowly, and then once you're here, maybe you forgot some recipes over here. Relearn those and bring that back up to a 7. So you want to be that consistent level, and once you get to 7 and everything, then try to go to 8 and everything, and then try to go to 9 and then 10. And you'll find that even if you've done this for like 30, 40 years, maybe you've been doing this forever, you still might not be a 10 out of 10 in everything, because once you get here, maybe some other area will fall off, and there's still ways to bring that back up. So no matter how far you are in this journey, there's still so much more to learn, and that's once you find those things, that's how you bring that passion and that enthusiasm back. So just to summarize, we talked about quite a few things in this video, but there's really 3 main things you can do to bring that enthusiasm and that passion for home bartending really back up. And this applies not just to this, but to any other skill or hobby that you're trying to learn. So the first thing that you can do is to teach others, because that is the best way to learn. So whether you're like myself and you're teaching on social media like YouTube, or maybe you're on Instagram or TikTok or something like that, find ways to teach others. You can do it online on social media, or you can also do it offline. You can do it in the real world when people come over to your apartment, when you're having conversations with people. You can teach them things about cocktails. Teach them recipes, teach them techniques, teach them history, share that passion and enthusiasm that you have, share that with other people, and they'll care as much as you do about that as well. So teaching is the number one thing we talked about in this video. When you're finding your skills are coming down, you find that enthusiasm and that passion waning, teach others, and that's really how you can bring that up. The second thing we talked about in this is to always be learning new recipes, and one way to even go beyond that is to come up with your own recipes, create your own recipes and your own unique cocktails. And then finally, the third thing that we talked about is to always find a new area. Because home bartending and mixology is so broad, you can always find new things to learn. You can always find new techniques, new recipes, new families of cocktails. You can learn history. There's so many infinite amount of things you can learn about home bartending that even when you're very advanced like myself, 5+ years into this journey, there's still so many things you can learn. So those are the 3 main ways that I feel like when you're like myself and you've gone through periods where your passion and enthusiasm, your knowledge, your skill, those things are waning. These are things that you could do. Teach others, learn new recipes, find a new area to achieve mastery in. Do those 3 things, and you'll find your skills and your passion and your enthusiasm improving when things are starting to go down. Anyways, if you found the advice in this video helpful, please go ahead and subscribe to the channel. I really like to do 2 types of videos on this channel. One will be tutorial videos where I show you guys how to make a specific cocktail. And the other video will be like this one, where it's either guides or general advice or tips and tricks that I feel will help you guys become better home bartenders. Thank you. Cheers.